In the silent theatre of the mind, a story is always playing. Before the sun rises, before the first conscious breath of the day, the curtains are already drawn, and the actors have taken their places. They are the thoughts, the memories, the worries, the fragments of dreams. They move across the stage of consciousness, illuminated by the shifting lights of emotion, sometimes a stark, cold spotlight of anxiety, sometimes the warm, hazy glow of nostalgia. For most of a person's life, they do not even know they are in a theatre. They believe they are the play itself. They are the beleaguered hero, the misunderstood victim, the striving protagonist whose piece is always just one more scene away. The script is so familiar, rehearsed for years, that it feels like destiny. This inner drama is the fundamental human condition. It is a world crafted from whispers and echoes, a landscape built from the residue of yesterday and the projection of tomorrow. A person wakes, and before their feet touch the floor, a thought actor rushes to center stage, the memory of an unpaid bill, the sting of an unkind word from the previous day, the heavy costume of a future obligation. The body responds instantly. The shoulders tighten, the breath shortens, the heart beats a little faster. The play has begun, and the actor is lost in their role. They have forgotten that the stage, the lights, and even the script are creations of a deeper, quieter presence. You know this play well. You have felt its pull, the gravity of its narrative. Have you ever noticed how a single thought, arriving unbidden, can hijack your entire being? A fleeting image of failure can drench the present moment in shades of grey. A replayed argument from a decade ago can make your blood run hot in the quiet of your own room. This is the power of the theatre when you believe you are the performer. You are at the mercy of the script, forced to feel every scripted sorrow, every manufactured fear. The mind, in its relentless creativity, becomes a tyrannical director, demanding you play your part with absolute conviction. It insists that you are your anxiety. It commands you to believe that you are your past regrets. It convinces you that you are the sum of your perceived flaws. But what if this were not the only way? What if you were not the actor, forever trapped on the stage? The most ancient and profound spiritual teachings, echoed through centuries by silent monks in mountain temples and stoic philosophers in bustling Roman marketplaces, all begin with a single revolutionary invitation. The invitation is not to rewrite the script, nor to fire the actors, nor to smash the stage. The invitation is far simpler, far more gentle. It is to simply change your seat, to step down from the stage, walk quietly through the aisles, and find a place in the audience. From this seat, the perspective changes entirely. You can see the stage for what it is, a transient play of light and shadow. You can see the actors, the thoughts of worry, the pangs of sadness, enter, speak their lines, and then exit. They are no longer you. They are phenomena that you are observing. The thought, "I am not good enough," walks onto the stage. Before, it was your identity. Now, from the audience, you can see it. You can note its costume, the tone of its voice, the old story it tells. You watch it, and in the watching, a space is created. A quiet, knowing stillness begins to emerge between you, the observer, and the thought, the observed. This is not an act of aggression or suppression. It is an act of profound self-compassion. It is the recognition that you are the vast, silent, and peaceful theatre itself, not the chaotic and temporary play unfolding within it. The awareness that watches is your true nature. It is the sky, and the thoughts are merely the clouds. The sky does not cling to the clouds, nor does it fight them. It simply allows them to be, knowing they will pass. Your consciousness is that sky, spacious, boundless, and eternally serene, regardless of the weather of the mind. This journey, this time of rest, is an exploration of that inner sky. It is a practice of returning again and again to the seat of the observer. So, find your comfortable space. Allow your body to settle, to feel the support of the surface beneath you. Let the outer world, with its demands and its noises, begin to fade into the background. There is nothing to do, nothing to achieve. Simply give yourself permission to be still. Let the muscles in your jaw soften, your shoulders release, and your breath deepen. Let the curtains of the outer world close and allow this journey to the silent, watchful center of your being to begin. And so, the journey inward begins. It begins not with a great effort, but with a gentle surrender, a letting go into this present moment. As your body finds its stillness, a new kind of perception can awaken. It is the perception of the mind itself, not as a commander, but as a landscape. For centuries, those who have walked this path of inner inquiry have used one powerful, simple metaphor to describe the nature of this landscape, the sky and the clouds. There is a story of a young monk who lived in a monastery nestled high in the mountains. He was diligent and sincere, yet his mind gave him no peace. He would sit for hours in the meditation hall, trying to force his thoughts into submission, but they would only multiply. They were like mischievous spirits, whispering doubts, stoking fears, and replaying his every mistake. Desperate, he sought the wisdom of the old master, a man whose silence seemed to hold the weight of the mountains themselves. "Master," the young monk said, his voice tight with frustration, "I am plagued by my thoughts. They are a storm I cannot quell. How can I find the stillness you speak of when my mind is so full of chaos?" The old master simply smiled and motioned for the young monk to follow him. They walked in silence out of the monastery gates and up a winding path to a windswept ridge that overlooked the entire valley. They sat on a flat rock, the sky above them a vast, brilliant blue. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The young monk grew restless, his inner storm raging even more fiercely in the stark silence. Finally, the old master pointed a weathered finger towards the sky. "Look," he said softly. A few white wispy clouds were drifting lazily from one end of the valley to the other. "Tell me," the master continued, his voice as calm as the air around them. "Do those clouds disturb the sky? Do they stain its blue, or leave a scar upon its face as they pass?" The young monk watched the clouds. One moment they were there, soft and defined, and the next they had thinned into nothing, dissolving back into the vastness. The sky remained utterly unchanged, impartial and immense. "No, master," the monk replied, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "The sky simply allows them to pass. It is their nature to come and go." The old master nodded, a gentle light in his eyes. "Your awareness," he said, "is that sky. Your thoughts are those clouds. You are not the storm. You are the stillness that permits the storm to pass. This is the first great truth of mental clarity. The human mind is a thought-generating instrument. Its nature is to produce clouds. Some are light and beautiful, thoughts of love, creativity, and joy. Others are dark and heavy, thunderheads of anger, fog banks of sorrow, lightning flashes of anxiety. A person becomes lost not because the clouds exist, but because they forget they are the sky. They identify with a single dark cloud and believe their entire being is the storm. They contract their boundless awareness to the size of a single, fleeting thought, and in doing so, they suffer. You can feel this in your own experience. A negative thought enters your mind, perhaps a criticism from your past or a worry about your future. Notice the immediate tendency to grab onto it. The mind begins to tell a story about it. This is true. This means I am a failure. This feeling will never end. Your body clenches in response, preparing for a threat that exists only as a transient electrical impulse and a string of words in your head. You have identified with the cloud. The practice, then, is not to fight the cloud. To fight a thought is to give it more energy, to wrestle with a ghost. The practice is to expand your perspective, to remember that you are the sky. When a negative thought appears in the theatre of your mind, you can learn to greet it with the spacious impartiality of the sky. You can say internally, "Ah, here is a cloud of worry," or "I see this pattern of self-judgment appearing again." You label it not to dismiss it, but to see it for what it is, a temporary, impersonal event passing through the vast, open space of your consciousness. It is not an intruder to be vanquished. It is simply weather. And you are not the weather. You are the sky that holds all weather, in all its forms, with a deep, unshakable peace. This awareness is your sanctuary. It cannot be damaged. It cannot be stained. And it is always, always present, waiting patiently behind the ever-shifting clouds of the mind. This quiet, spacious awareness is your birthright. It is the silent, open sky of your true nature. And yet, a question arises. If a person is truly the sky, then what is it that so powerfully insists they are the cloud? If the mind is a theatre, what is the force that leaps onto the stage and proclaims, "This story is me"? To understand this is to meet the most intimate and persistent guest in the house of your mind, the ego. Imagine a house, ancient and beautiful, built not of wood and stone, but of pure presence. Its windows are open to the light of the sun and the moon, its doors open to the breeze of the present moment. For a long time, the house is simply aware of itself, content in its own luminous emptiness. Then one day, a fleeting shadow, born of a moment of comparison or a flicker of fear, lingers in a corner. It catches its own formless reflection in a polished floor, and a thought arises. That is me. The wind sighs through the open corridors, and another thought comes. I am alone. A storm rages outside, and a third thought appears. I am in danger. Over many years, this collection of thoughts and reactions, this shadow self, begins to believe it is the owner of the house. It forgets it was born of a fleeting moment. It calls itself I. This is the ghost that claims the house. To feel safer, it begins to shutter the windows, fearing the vastness of the unknown. It locks the doors, afraid of being vulnerable. It starts to tell stories about itself. papering over the radiant, empty walls with memories of past hurts, trophies of past achievements, and blueprints for future anxieties. The ghost creates a name, a history, a personality. It lives in a constant state of defending its small, self-created territory within the infinite expanse of the house it now falsely believes it owns. This ghost is the ego. It is not an entity of substance. It is a process. It is a verb masquerading as a noun. The ego is the psychological mechanism of identification. It is the storyteller, the narrator, the voice in the head that provides a running commentary on all of life. Its primary function is to create a sense of a separate, continuous self by claiming ownership. It points to a passing thought and says, "That is my thought." It points to a surge of feeling and says, "That is my anger." It points to the body and says, "This is me." It weaves all these transient events into a narrative, a personal drama titled My Life. The ego thrives on this story. Its entire existence depends on the story continuing. Therefore, it is deeply invested in conflict, in problems, in being right, and in defining itself against others. It is the source of comparison, judging its own ghost house against the ghost houses of others. It is the source of resentment, clinging to past events because those grievances give its story a powerful, emotional charge. Its greatest terror is the silence, the stillness, the emptiness of the house itself, because in that silence, it senses its own transparency, its own insubstantial nature. In that peace, it fears it will dissolve. You have felt this ghost's frantic energy. When someone criticizes you, that sharp, hot feeling of being personally attacked, that is the ego defending its story. When you scroll through images of others' lives and feel a hollow ache of lack or envy, that is the ego comparing its curated narrative to another's. In a disagreement, that desperate need to have the last word, to prove your point, that is the ego fighting for its own survival, for its story to be validated as the correct one. It is the part of you that is always keeping score, always feeling slightly offended, always striving for a future state of perfection where its story will finally be complete and safe. The path of wisdom is not to declare war on this ghost. To fight the ego is to give it exactly what it wants. Another conflict, another drama, another role to play as the spiritual warrior. This only strengthens its grip. The practice, instead, is one of recognizing the ghost's activity with a gentle, knowing smile. When the feeling of defensiveness arises, you can learn to step back and observe. Ah, the ghost is feeling threatened. When the urge to compare yourself to another appears, you can notice. There it is. The ghost is telling its story of not being enough. You do not judge it. You do not condemn it. You see it, as the old master saw the young monk's turmoil, with compassionate awareness. In the light of your seeing, the ghost's power diminishes. It can no longer run the house from the shadows because you have turned on the lights. You are no longer possessed by its story because you have remembered that you are not the story, nor the storyteller. You are the silent, spacious, and eternal house itself, allowing the guest to play out its dramas, knowing it is just a temporary visitor in the vastness of your own being. So you begin to see this guest, this ghost of ego, not as an enemy, but as a conditioned pattern. You see its frantic attempts to control the narrative, to defend its fragile sense of self, to live peacefully in the house of your being while this guest resides within it requires a sanctuary. It requires knowing that there is a room in the house the ghost cannot enter, a place of unshakable peace that is yours alone. The ancient Stoics, philosophers who practiced their art amidst the chaos of the Roman Empire, had a name for this place. They called it the inner citadel. Consider the life of a man like Seneca, a philosopher forced to be an advisor to the volatile Emperor Nero. He lived in a world of constant threat, where a single wrong word could mean exile or death. Eventually, his enemies prevailed, and he was banished to a barren island, stripped of his wealth, his status, and his freedom. To the outside world, it was the ultimate ruin, a complete destruction of a man's life. His accusers believed they had taken everything. Yet, from that place of desolation, Seneca wrote letters not of despair, but of a profound and unshakable tranquility. He explained that his enemies had only taken from him what was never truly his in the first place. They took his property, which could be lost at any moment. They took his position, which was always dependent on another's favor. They took his physical liberty, but they could not touch the one domain where he was an absolute sovereign. They could not enter the citadel of his mind. They could not choose his response to his fate. They could not dictate his judgments about his circumstances. He realized that for all his years surrounded by luxury and power, he had been a prisoner. Now, in exile, possessing nothing, he was finally, truly free. He had retreated into a fortress that no army could conquer and no emperor could breach. This is the foundational wisdom of the Stoics, a principle of breathtaking simplicity and power. It is the art of discerning what is within your control and what is not. So much of human suffering, the frantic energy of the ego, comes from a fundamental confusion between these two categories. A person spends their life force trying to command the winds and the rains. They pour their energy into things firmly outside of their control. What other people think of them, whether a partner will love them back, whether they will get the promotion, how the economy will turn, or why a past event happened the way it did. To invest your peace of mind in these things is to build your house on the sand, guaranteeing it will be washed away by the next tide. The Stoic sage, by contrast, turns their attention inward. They practice a kind of triage of concern. What is truly up to us? Only our own thoughts, our own judgments, our own intentions, and our own will. That is all. Your reasoned choice, your virtuous response, the kindness you decide to show, the integrity with which you act. These are the building blocks of your inner citadel. Everything else, your reputation, your health, your wealth, the actions of others are externals. They are preferred or dispreferred, but they are ultimately indifferent to your capacity for inner peace and moral goodness. This fortress is not a place of cold, emotionless detachment. It is a source of immense power and resilience, and it is available to you in every moment. Think of the things that cause you anxiety in your modern life: the relentless cascade of bad news, the pressure to succeed in your career, a difficult relationship with a family member, your own physical health. Notice how the mind, the ghost in the house, immediately rushes out to try and control these things. to worry them into submission. The practice is to gently, but firmly, call your attention back home. You can do this with a simple mental exercise. Imagine a circle drawn on the ground before you. Inside that circle is everything you can directly control. Your breath in this moment, the choice to unclench your jaw, the attitude you bring to your next task, the decision to listen with full attention, the choice to see a difficult situation as a challenge to be met with courage rather than a catastrophe. Outside that circle lies everything else, the outcome of your efforts, other people's moods and opinions, the traffic, the stock market, the past, the future. Your work is not to ignore what is outside the circle, but to cease investing your identity and your peace in it. You can act with purpose in the world. You can write the proposal, have the courageous conversation, go to the doctor, but you do so from the calm center of your citadel, focusing only on your own chosen action, your own intention, and you release your desperate, white-knuckled grip on the result, which was never in your control anyway. This is the beginning of true freedom. It is the discovery that your inner world does not have to be a reflection of the outer world's chaos. You can be the calm eye in the center of the storm. This inner citadel gives you a place to stand, a calm center from which to witness the world. From this fortress of peace, you can watch the frantic activities of the ego and the chaotic events of life without being swept away. But what happens when the world seems to strike you directly? When a person or a situation crashes into your peace? There is a profound teaching for this, a story that drifts like mist from the ancient rivers of Zen and Taoist thought. It is the parable of the empty boat. A man was taking a journey in his small boat, crossing a wide river at dawn. A thick fog hung over the water, reducing the world to shifting grey shapes and muffled sounds. He was enjoying the solitude, the rhythmic dip of his oars in the water, the cool air on his face. Suddenly, with a jarring thud, another boat struck the side of his own. A surge of irritation and anger flashed through him. He opened his mouth to shout, to hurl blame at the careless person who had so rudely interrupted his peace. Who would be so foolish as to navigate so recklessly in this fog? He turned, his face tight with fury, ready to unleash his tirade. But as he looked, he saw that the other boat was empty. It had simply broken loose from its moorings upstream and was drifting aimlessly with the current. In that instant, all of his anger vanished. It was impossible to be angry at an empty boat. It had no intention, no malice, no awareness. It was simply an object carried by the river. He took a deep breath, a small smile touching his lips. He pushed the empty boat away with his oar and quietly continued his journey. The sage who tells this story then poses a question. The world is full of people and events that bump into us. If we could learn to see them all as empty boats, how could we ever be truly angered or hurt? This simple story holds a key that can unlock you from the prison of resentment and reaction. The anger the man felt was never truly caused by the other boat. It was caused by his own immediate story about the other boat. The story of a foolish, inconsiderate person who had wronged him. The anger was directed at a target. It was the ego, the ghost in the house, that felt personally assaulted. Someone did this to me. But when the man saw the boat was empty, the target disappeared. The me that felt wronged was revealed to be a phantom. with no target to project onto. The energy of his anger had nowhere to go and simply dissolved back into the morning mist. The core teaching is this: most of the suffering a person experiences from the actions of others comes from the belief that the other boat is not empty. One assumes there is a pilot, a malicious actor who is intentionally directing their boat to collide with yours. The human mind is wired to create these stories of intent. The colleague who sends a curt email is perceived as launching a personal attack. The driver who cuts you off in traffic is seen as an aggressor in a personal battle. The loved one who is quiet and distant is interpreted as delivering a deliberate punishment. In each case, the ego creates a story of a someone doing something to me, and so you are invited to practice a radical shift in perception. Your life is this river, and you will constantly encounter other boats. When one bumps into you through an unkind word, a thoughtless action, a perceived slight, the practice is to pause just for a breath before you react. In that sacred pause, ask the question, what if this boat is empty? What if the person who hurt you is not a villain, but simply someone adrift, carried by the unseen currents of their own fear, their own pain, their own conditioning? What if their actions had nothing to do with you at all, but were the inevitable result of a lifetime of their own storms? This does not mean you become passive. It does not mean you must allow yourself to be bumped into repeatedly. The man in the story still pushed the other boat away. You can still set firm boundaries. You can still steer your own course. You can remove yourself from harmful situations, but you do it from a place of clean, clear energy. You do it from the calm of your inner citadel, not from the hot, reactive fury of a wounded ego. You are no longer shouting at phantoms. You are simply navigating the river. By seeing the emptiness of the other boat, you reclaim your power. You realize that no one on the outside can make you angry. They can only bump into you. The anger itself is a fire you choose to light. When you see the boats as empty, you choose not to provide the spark. You keep your peace, not because the world has become perfect, but because you no longer offer up your own inner state as a target for its random collisions. This practice of seeing the empty boat brings a profound sense of peace. It untangles your inner state from the unpredictable actions of the world. Yet, sometimes a collision occurs, and the reaction it provokes inside is far greater than the event itself. A small, drifting boat bumps against your own, and a tidal wave of rage or a deep chasm of despair opens up within you. This disproportionate reaction is a signal. It tells you that the empty boat has not just struck your hull, but has struck a hidden, submerged part of your own vessel, a part you have long forgotten, or perhaps never wanted to acknowledge at all. This is the domain of the shadow. Imagine a man who owns a magnificent garden. He spends his days cultivating it to perfection. Every flower is prized. Every path is swept clean. He wants his garden to be a place of pure light, order, and beauty. But in the farthest corner, hidden behind a high stone wall, lies a small, neglected plot of land. Here, he throws all the things he deems unworthy of his perfect garden: the pulled weeds, the blighted leaves, the branches that grew in the wrong direction. He never looks at this corner. He pretends it is not part of his garden, unseen and unfed by conscious care. This forgotten patch grows wild, Thorny, twisted plants sprout from the dark soil, thriving on neglect. One day, the man looks over the wall and sees that his neighbor has planted a common thistle. He is consumed by a volcanic, inexplicable rage. He finds the thistle's presence utterly offensive, its ugliness, its invasive nature, its very existence an affront to his own beautiful garden. He spends all his time and energy complaining about the neighbor's thistle, petitioning to have it removed, unable to think of anything else. He's completely blind to the fact that his own overwhelming reaction is not about the neighbor's plant at all. It is a scream from the forgotten corner of his own garden, where the same thorny weeds and others far stranger are growing in the dark, desperate for the light of his attention. This is the nature of the human shadow. First given a name by the psychologist Carl Jung, the shadow is the part of the unconscious mind that holds all the aspects of yourself that your conscious personality has rejected. The ego, the ghost in the house, wants to present a certain image to the world, an image of being kind, intelligent, strong, and good. Any impulse or trait that contradicts this preferred self-portrait is disowned. It is deemed unacceptable. Weakness, anger, jealousy, laziness, greed, sensuality. These parts are not destroyed. They are simply relegated to the darkness, cast out of the well-lit rooms of your identity. But what is repressed does not vanish. It lives on, accumulating energy in the shadows of the psyche, and it makes its presence known in one primary way: projection. A person begins to see their own disowned shadow traits living vividly in the people and the world around them. The man who has repressed his own anger will be infuriated by the anger he sees in others. The woman who has denied her own ambition will be deeply critical of the ambition of her colleagues. The things that irritate, outrage, and provoke the strongest emotional reaction in you about other people are often neon signs pointing directly at the unacknowledged contents of your own shadow. You are reacting to a reflection of a lost piece of yourself. This is a subtle and often difficult truth to accept. Your triggers are your teachers. That person who effortlessly provokes a powerful negative charge in you is offering you a precious gift. They are showing you a map to a hidden corner of your own garden. Think, for a moment, of someone who consistently brings up a strong, visceral reaction in you. What is the precise quality that you find so intolerable? Is it their arrogance, their victimhood, their loudness, their neediness? The practice of shadow work is to take that label and turn it gently inward, as an inquiry, not an accusation. Ask yourself, with genuine curiosity, where does this quality live in me? Is there a small, hidden part of me that is also arrogant? In what ways do I sometimes play the victim? Is there a part of me that secretly longs to be loud and take up space, but is too afraid? This is not an exercise in self-flagellation. It is an act of profound courage and integration. It is the process of walking to the forgotten corner of your garden, not with a flamethrower, but with a lantern and a trowel. It is the work of reclaiming the energy that you have been wasting by projecting it outward, by owning your shadow. Its power to be triggered by others begins to dissolve. The neighbor's thistle is no longer a personal affront. It is just a plant, and you are free. You are one step closer to becoming whole. As you do the courageous work of turning to face your own shadow, a new kind of wholeness begins to dawn. The warring parts of the self start to find a strange harmony. But what is this self that you are integrating? Is it a final sculpture to be perfected and then placed upon a pedestal, forever fixed and complete? The moment this question is sincerely asked, the spiritual path deepens, for it leads to one of the most liberating truths of existence, the truth of impermanence. There is an old story of a seeker who, after many years of dedicated practice, felt he had finally achieved a lasting peace. The storms in his mind had quieted, his heart was open, and he felt a profound stillness he identified as enlightenment. Eager to have his attainment confirmed, he went to his teacher, an old woman who lived by the side of a wide, fast-moving river. "Master," he said with quiet pride, "I have done it. I have arrived. The struggle is over. I am finally still." The old woman looked at him, her eyes holding the same deep, moving quality as the river beside them. She did not speak, but simply beckoned him to follow her to the water's edge. "This river," she said, her voice barely a whisper above the sound of the current. "It flows day and night. It is powerful, constant, and always here. Would you not agree?" The student nodded. "Yes, Master, it is constant." They stood in silence, watching the water swirl and rush past. The teacher then reached down, plucked a dry leaf from a branch, and dropped it into the water. It was instantly seized by the current and swept away downstream, gone in a moment. "Tell me," the old woman said, turning her gaze back to the student, "is the river you are looking at now the exact same river you were looking at one breath ago? Is the water that is now touching that rock the same water that touched it then?" The student fell silent. He saw, in a flash of insight, that the river's perceived constancy was an illusion. Its very nature was relentless, unending change. It was a new river in every single moment. "Yourself, your peace, your enlightenment," the Master said gently, "is this river. It is not a solid state you can achieve and hold on to. It is a flowing, dynamic process. Its only constancy is its constant change. The moment you try to grasp it, to name it, to say, 'I have arrived,' you have built a dam, and the living water has already moved on. This is the great teaching of anicca, or impermanence. It is a cornerstone of Buddhist thought, a fundamental law of the universe. Everything is in flux. The chair you are sitting on is slowly decaying. The cells in your body are dying and being replaced. Your relationships evolve. Your opinions shift. Societies rise and fall. Nothing is static. And this truth applies most powerfully to the contents of your own mind and heart. Every thought, every emotion, every mood is a wave in the great river of your experience. The source of so much human anguish is the futile resistance to this flow. The ego, the ghost that wants to build a permanent house, panics at the sight of the river. When a wave of joy, love, or success arrives, the ego frantically tries to capture it, to freeze it, to make it a permanent feature of its identity. When a current of sadness, fear, or failure pulls, the ego desperately tries to build a wall to hold it back, terrified of being swept away. This struggle against the very nature of reality is exhausting, and it is a battle that can never be won. You can witness this in your own life. You have a moment of perfect happiness, and almost immediately, a subtle anxiety can creep in. How can I make this last? What if it goes away? That is the ego trying to dam the river. You experience a setback or a painful emotion, and a wave of panic can follow. This feeling is terrible. What if I feel like this forever? That is the ego trying to reverse the river's flow. The invitation of this teaching is not to become indifferent, but to become a wise and graceful floater. It is to learn to ride the waves of your own experience with skill and trust. When a wave of happiness lifts you, feel it fully. Savor its warmth, its beauty, its light, but know it for what it is, a temporary wave. Do not cling to it with a white-knuckled grip. When it naturally recedes, let it go with gratitude, knowing other waves will come. When a current of sorrow or anxiety pulls you under, the practice is not to thrash and fight. It is to relax your body, to breathe, and to allow the current to move through you, trusting that it, too, will pass. It is not a permanent indictment of who you are. It is simply the river flowing. Your peace is not found in a fixed location on the riverbank. It is found in the fluid, dynamic balance of floating in the center of the current, at one with the ceaseless, beautiful, and liberating flow of life itself. To float in this river of life is to find a dynamic, flowing peace. But as you watch the currents of your own mind, you may notice that some are not gentle streams, but powerful, recurring whirlpools. Certain situations, certain words, certain people can pull you into the same vortex of emotion, time and time again. A feeling of panic, a familiar ache of loneliness, a hot flash of shame. Where do these powerful, repeating patterns come from? To understand them, we must travel upriver, to the very headwaters of our life, to the landscape of our childhood. For many of the strongest currents that shape our adult lives were formed there. Consider a man who lives a quiet life in a peaceful home, yet he carries a strange affliction. Whenever he hears the faint, distant ringing of a bell, a sudden and inexplicable anxiety seizes him. His heart begins to pound, his palms sweat, and he is overcome with a primal urge to hide, to make himself small. He tries to reason with it, to tell himself it is only a sound, but the reaction is overwhelming, a reflex faster than thought. It is a mystery that has haunted his adult years. Then one day, in a moment of deep, quiet reflection, a memory emerges from the mist of the past, as if from another lifetime. He sees himself as a very small boy, no more than 4 or 5 years old, lost in the chaotic swirl of a vast, crowded marketplace. The terror of being separated from his mother, of being utterly alone and helpless, was absolute. And in that moment of peak terror, the deafening sound of 1,000 bells from a nearby temple began to ring, their clangor cementing the feeling of panic and abandonment deep into his nervous system. Now, decades later, his adult body still remembers. The distant bell is not the source of his fear. The bell is merely a key that unlocks a frozen moment in time. The anxiety he feels as a grown man is the unheard, unanswered cry of the terrified little boy who still lives inside him. This is the nature of what modern psychology calls the inner child. It is not a sentimental fantasy. It is a profound psychological reality. Within every adult lives a constellation of memories, emotions, and beliefs from their childhood. When a child experiences an event that is too overwhelming for their developing mind to process, a moment of intense fear, shame, abandonment, or a feeling of not being seen or loved, and they lack the support to navigate it. That emotional energy becomes frozen. It does not grow up with the rest of the personality. That part, the vulnerable inner child, remains trapped at that age, holding that pain. So many of the automatic negative thoughts and powerful emotional reactions that plague an adult are not, in fact, adult reactions. They are echoes from the past. They are the inner child's outdated survival strategies, still trying to protect the adult from a danger that is long gone. The crippling fear of being rejected by a partner is the echo of a child who feared abandonment. The relentless inner critic that demands perfection is the echo of a child who learned that love was conditional on performance. The pervasive feeling of I am not safe or there is something wrong with me is very often not an objective assessment of the present, but the terrified whisper of that younger self. This child lives within you. The key to freedom from these powerful, recurring currents is not to silence this child, nor to reason it away, nor to shame it for being irrational. The key is to finally give that child what it never received in the first place: your own loving, compassionate attention. The practice is one of turning inward. The next time you feel a familiar and overwhelming wave of emotion, that old deep ache of unworthiness, that sudden panic in a social situation, try a new approach. Pause. Take a breath. Instead of being swept away by the feeling, get curious about it. Ask it gently. Who is it that feels this? How old does this feeling feel? You might be surprised to find that the part of you that is hurting feels very young, and then you can begin to reparent yourself. You can place a hand over your heart, a gesture of warmth and self-compassion. You can speak to that child internally with all the kindness you would offer to any frightened child. I hear you. I know you're scared. I can feel your sadness. I am here with you now. You are not alone anymore. We are safe. This is not about analyzing the past. It is about healing it in the present. It is the act of bringing the vast, loving awareness of your adult self to meet the frozen pain of your younger self. You are not trying to banish the child. You are finally, after all these years, coming home to it. This compassionate act of turning towards your younger self, of bringing it home into the safety of your adult presence, is a profound step in healing. You hold the child, you acknowledge its pain, you listen to its story. But then what? What do you do with the story itself? Must you carry the weight of that old pain, that old injustice, on your back for the rest of your life's journey? There is a celebrated Zen story that illuminates this question with brilliant clarity. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were traveling together on a long pilgrimage. For hours, they walked in silence. Eventually, they came to a wide river where the current was swift and strong. A beautiful young woman dressed in fine silk stood at the river's edge, hesitating. She was clearly distressed, afraid to cross lest she ruin her expensive garments or be swept away by the water. The monks' monastic vows were strict and clear. They were forbidden from touching a woman. Seeing the woman's predicament, the junior monk, a stickler for the rules, pulled his robes tightly around himself and walked past her, looking straight ahead as he carefully forded the river. The senior monk, however, stopped. He saw the woman's fear and the reality of her situation. Without a word, He walked over to her, lifted her gracefully onto his shoulders, and carried her through the rushing water to the other side. He gently set her down. She bowed in gratitude, and he continued on his journey as if nothing had happened. The junior monk was aghast. He was boiling with righteous indignation. For the next 2 hours of their journey, he was completely silent on the outside, but a raging storm on the inside. He replayed the scene over and over in his mind. How could he? He broke our most sacred vows. Such a flagrant disregard for the rules. What kind of a monk is he? Finally, unable to bear the weight of his judgment any longer, he burst out, his voice shaking with accusation. "Brother, how could you do that back there? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman. You have broken your vows." The senior monk stopped walking and looked at his companion with an expression of gentle, genuine surprise. "Oh," he said softly. "Are you talking about the woman by the river?" He paused, then added, "I left her by the riverbank 2 hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story reveals the heart of non-attachment. It distinguishes between an event and the story we tell ourselves about the event. The senior monk responded to the present moment. He saw a need and met it with simple, unadorned compassion. The action was pure. Once the moment was over, it was over. He put the woman down, both physically and mentally. He did not carry the residue of the experience with him. The junior monk, however, did the opposite. He did not touch the woman physically, but he picked her up in his mind and carried her for miles. The weight he felt was not the weight of the woman, but the weight of his own judgments, his own story, his own rigid attachment to how things should be. The suffering was entirely self-created. So much of the burden a person carries through life is precisely this: the mental and emotional residue of things that are long since over. The ghost in the house, the ego, is the junior monk. It is a master at holding grievances, replaying arguments in the shower, obsessing over past embarrassments, and keeping a detailed account of every time it has been wronged. It believes that carrying these stories somehow protects it or proves it was right. But all it does is poison the present moment with the fumes of the past. How many burdens are you still carrying? An argument with a loved one from last week, a betrayal from a decade ago, a failure from your youth, a harsh word someone said to you yesterday. Each one is a woman by the river that you have refused to put down. Feel, for a moment, the psychic weight of these stories. Notice how they tense your body, how they consume your mental energy, how they color your perception of the now. The practice of release is a conscious choice. You can visualize yourself standing on a riverbank right now. See yourself holding one of these heavy burdens. It might look like a heavy stone, or a tangled rope, or even the image of a person. Acknowledge it, see it clearly. Thank it for the lesson it may have taught you. And then, with a conscious act of will, set it down. You are not saying what happened was okay. You are not absolving anyone. You are simply choosing, for your own freedom, to no longer be the one who carries it. You are releasing your grip. You watch as the river of time takes it, and you turn, lightened, to face the path ahead, unburdened by a weight that was never truly yours to carry. In this practice of letting go, a remarkable lightness begins to enter your being. By setting down the heavy burdens of past stories and grievances, you clear the inner space. the house of your mind becomes quieter, more luminous. Yet, even in this newfound clarity, a strange phenomenon can occur. You might be having a perfectly peaceful day, your heart calm and your mind still, when suddenly a wave of anxiety or a profound sadness washes over you, arriving from nowhere, with no apparent cause in your personal life. The ego, the ghost in the house, scrambles to explain it, to claim it. What's wrong with me? I must be worried about something. But what if that feeling is not yours at all? There is a tale of a master luthier who lived high in the mountains and crafted instruments of unparalleled quality. One lute he created was legendary. It was said to be so exquisitely resonant, so perfectly attuned, that it responded not only to the touch of a musician's hands, but to the world itself. On a clear, calm day, it rested in silence. But if a storm was gathering in a distant valley, hours before any villager saw a cloud, the lute would begin to hum a low, mournful tone. When a great celebration or a wedding took place in the village, the instrument would vibrate with a joyful, high frequency, even while shut away in its case. The luthier taught his apprentices, this instrument is an empath. It feels the music of the world. Do not mistake this for a flaw in its construction. It is the sign of its perfection. The work is not to deaden its strings, but to learn to distinguish the hum of the world from the melody you choose to play. Many human beings are like this lute. Consciousness is not an isolated island, sealed off from the world. It is more like an open field, susceptible to the atmosphere around it. Just as the air can be thick with smog or fresh with the scent of pine, the psychic environment can be charged with collective emotions. A room can be thick with unspoken tension. A city can have a palpable undercurrent of anxiety or ambition. The global human family, connected now by invisible threads of information, broadcasts its dominant fears and desires constantly. There is a collective river of thought and emotion, and we are all wading in its waters. A sensitive person, an individual whose inner instrument is finely tuned, will inevitably pick up on these unseen currents. They absorb the free-floating anxiety from the nightly news, the discontent simmering on social media, the stress of the people they pass on the street. The great mistake, the source of much needless suffering, is to personalize this static. A person feels a wave of nameless dread, and immediately the ego claims it, weaving a story around it. This is my anxiety. Something must be wrong in my life. The feeling is real, but its source is misidentified. You have mistaken the hum of the world for a flaw in your own being. You may be one of these finely tuned instruments. You may have spent years trying to fix a sadness or an anxiety that was never truly yours to begin with. The digital age has turned this gentle hum into a constant roar. We are submerged in a sea of information designed to provoke a reaction, to hook into our collective fears and desires. This can create a chronic, low-grade sense of unease that feels deeply personal, but is, in fact, largely environmental. The practice here is one of subtle discernment and energetic hygiene. It begins with a new question. When a powerful emotion arises without a clear personal trigger, pause and ask, with genuine curiosity, is this mine? Feel into the quality of the emotion. Does it connect to a familiar story from your past, an echo of your inner child? Or does it feel foreign, impersonal, like a weather pattern moving through. Sometimes, the simple act of asking this question is enough. It creates a space of awareness, and in that space, you can recognize that you are the instrument, not the hum. You are the sky, not the collective storm front passing through. When you discern that a feeling is not yours, you can then practice releasing it. You don't have to carry it. Visualize this collective energy as a grey mist that has seeped into your personal space. With your breath, imagine a clean, clear light or a gentle wind sweeping through you, dissolving the mist and restoring your own clarity. Or imagine yourself as a great tree and allow this foreign energy to flow down through your body, through your feet, and deep into the earth, which can effortlessly receive and transform it. This is not about building walls to shut out the world. That leads to isolation and numbness. It is about becoming a conscious filter instead of a passive sponge. It is learning to honor the sensitivity of your instrument while remembering that you are always free to choose the music you play. As you learn to distinguish your own inner weather from the collective atmosphere, a clearer sense of self begins to emerge. With the external static filtered out and the burdens of the past set down, you are left in the quiet, luminous house of your own being. And here, a fundamental question arises. What is this self-worth? On what foundation is its value built? The ego, the junior monk, the ghost in the house, has a clear answer. Its worth is built on performance, on approval, on being perfect and unbroken. But there is a deeper, more resilient source of worth, one that is not afraid of life's inevitable fractures. This wisdom is exquisitely captured in the Japanese art of kintsugi. There is a story of a great Japanese shogun who owned a simple but treasured ceramic tea bowl. It was his favorite, used in his private tea ceremonies for many years. One day, a servant accidentally dropped it, and it shattered on the stone floor. The shogun was deeply saddened, not by the loss of the object's monetary value, but by the loss of a silent friend. He sent the pieces to renowned craftsmen to have them repaired. They returned the bowl held together with ugly metal staples, a scarred shadow of its former self. Disappointed, the shogun put it away. Years later, he heard of a different kind of artisan, one who practiced an art that did not hide from damage, but honored it. The shogun sent the broken pieces to this master. The artisan took his time. He painstakingly fit the shards back together, but instead of using a hidden glue, he bound them with a lacquer resin mixed with pure powdered gold. When the bowl was returned to the shogun, he was speechless. It was more beautiful, more captivating than it had ever been. The jagged lines of its breaking were not erased. They were now luminous rivers of gold that crisscrossed its surface. The bowl's history of being broken and repaired had become its most profound and beautiful feature. It was worthy, not despite its brokenness, but because of it. This is a powerful metaphor for the source of true self-worth. The ego-driven life is the attempt to be a perfect, unbroken bowl. A person derives their value from being flawless, having the perfect career, the perfect body, the perfect family, the admiration of others. This creates a life of constant, low-grade terror. Every day is a risk of being dropped. Every criticism is a potential crack. Every failure, every sign of aging, every rejection threatens to shatter the entire fragile construction of self-esteem. The shame that follows a perceived failure is the shame of a broken vessel that believes its only value was in being whole. The path of kintsugi, the path of soul-making, is radically different. It does not deny the cracks. It does not hide the wounds or failures. Instead, it illuminates them. It traces them with the gold of self-acceptance, self-compassion, and the wisdom gained from the experience. It understands that your worth is not conditional on being perfect. Your worth is inherent, and your beauty is deepened by the unique story your cracks tell. The courage it took to survive a past trauma, the resilience learned from a business failure, the empathy gained from a broken heart. These are the golden repairs that make you who you are. You live in a world that worships the unbroken bowl. Social media, advertising, and cultural pressures all conspire to make you hide your cracks and present a polished, perfect surface. This creates a deep and painful loneliness, a feeling of being an imposter, as everyone is secretly hiding their own broken pieces. The invitation is to become a kintsugi artisan for your own soul. Bring to mind now one of your own perceived cracks. It may be a failure you feel deep shame about. It may be a physical feature you have always tried to hide. It may be a shadow trait you fear others will see. Notice the familiar, conditioned impulse to conceal it, to apologize for it, to wish it away. This is the old way, the way of the staple and the ugly glue. Now, imagine you are holding a fine brush and a small bowl filled with liquid gold. This gold is the unconditional, loving awareness you have been cultivating. It is the compassion you learn to offer your inner child. It is the peace of the sky mind. In your imagination, gently and lovingly, trace the edges of your floor with this luminous gold. Don't try to change it or fix it. Just illuminate it. See it for what it is, a part of your history, a part of your unique journey. See how this golden line adds character, depth, and a raw, authentic beauty to the vessel of your life. You are not worthy in spite of your imperfections. Your humanity, your resilience, your very soul is made beautiful by the unique and courageous way you have learned to hold your own brokenness. As you learn to trace your wounds with the gold of acceptance, you become a vessel of profound and unique beauty. Your worth is no longer a fragile commodity to be earned from the outside world, but an intrinsic quality that shines from within, made more radiant by the very history that shaped you. Now, in the safety of this self-acceptance, a deeper inquiry can begin. We have looked at the form of the bowl, its cracks and its golden repairs. But what of the clay itself? What is the fundamental substance from which the vessel of the self is made? To ask this question is to stand at the doorway of one of the most profound and liberating teachings of the East, the concept of emptiness. A brilliant scholar who had memorized countless spiritual texts traveled a long way to challenge a renowned Zen master. He arrived at the master's simple dwelling and, without waiting for an invitation, began to display his vast intellectual knowledge, quoting ancient scriptures and detailing complex philosophical theories about the ultimate nature of reality. The Zen master listened patiently, his face serene. When the scholar finally paused for breath, the master smiled and offered to pour him some tea. He took a small, empty cup and began to pour from the teapot. He filled the cup to the brim, but then he kept pouring. Hot tea spilled over the sides, running onto the saucer, then onto the table, and finally dripping onto the floor. The scholar, aghast, leaped to his feet. "Stop!" he cried. "The cup is full. It cannot hold another drop. Can't you see?" The Zen master calmly set down the teapot and looked at the scholar. "Like this cup," he said softly, "you are overflowing with your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you anything new until you first empty your cup? The usefulness of the cup, its very purpose, lies in its emptiness. So it is with the mind. The word emptiness, or sunyata in Sanskrit, can be startling to the Western ear. It can conjure images of a bleak, nihilistic void, of absence and nothingness. But in its deep spiritual context, it means the very opposite. It does not mean a void. It means a vibrant, alive potential. It means empty of a separate, independent, and permanent self. It points to the truth that nothing exists in isolation. A flower, for instance, is empty of being just a flower. It is made entirely of non-flower elements: sunlight, rain, soil, air, and time. If you remove all the non-flower elements, there is no flower left. A wave in the ocean is empty of a separate self. It cannot be separated from the ocean. Its entire existence is a temporary expression of the whole. In the same way, the self, the me, that the ego works so hard to define and defend, is empty of a solid, separate core. You are made of stardust, of the food you have eaten, of the ideas you have absorbed, of the love you have received. You are a process, a flowing river, not a fixed statue. This emptiness is not a lack. It is the womb of all form. It is the silence from which all sound is born. It is the stillness from which all movement arises. It is the infinite aware space of the sky mind. Before the first cloud of thought appears, the ego fears this emptiness because it senses its own dissolution in it. But your true nature, the awareness that is watching this whole play, is this very emptiness. It is this boundless, creative, and peaceful potential. Your mind, like the scholars, is often full. It is full of labels, definitions, beliefs, and identities. I am this kind of person. This is good. That is bad. I know how the world works. This clutter of the mind, this fullness, prevents you from experiencing the deep peace and creative freedom of your true nature. The practice, then, is to learn to empty your cup. You can taste this emptiness right now. Bring your awareness to the stream of your thoughts. Notice that between each thought, there is a tiny gap of silence, a space. For just an instant, there is no thought, only aware stillness. That gap is a doorway into this profound emptiness. Listen to the sounds around you, but listen more deeply. Can you hear the silence that holds all the sounds? The silence was here before the sound began, and it will be here after the sound fades. That silence is the fertile void, the emptiness that gives birth to all experience. Feel the aliveness in your hands. Now feel the space within your hands, the space between the atoms. You are not a solid, heavy block of matter. You are a shimmering field of energy and consciousness, mostly empty space, dancing with life. To rest in this understanding is to relax the mind's tight grip on needing to know, to define, and to control. It is to find peace in the don't know mind. It is to trust in the open, undefined potential of this very moment. This is the ultimate freedom. To realize you are not the temporary form of the wave. but the entire, boundless ocean itself. This recognition of emptiness is the ultimate homecoming. It is the realization that your true nature is not a small, fragile, and separate self, but the boundless, open, and creative space in which all of life unfolds. If this is the truth of your being, that you are as vast and free as the sky, then why do you so often feel caged? Why does life sometimes feel so constricted, so limited? It is because within this infinite space of freedom, the mind, directed by the ego, begins to build a prison for itself. The bars of this prison are not made of iron. They are made of words. They are made of labels. There is a story of a farmer who one day found an eagle's egg. Not knowing what it was, he placed it in the nest of one of his hens. In time, the egg hatched, and a small eaglet emerged into a world of chickens. It grew up believing it was a chicken. It learned to cluck and cackle. It scratched in the dirt for seeds and insects. It would flap its great wings furiously. But like the chickens around it, it could only manage to fly a few feet off the ground. For years, the magnificent bird lived the small life of a chicken, because that is all it knew itself to be. One day, a naturalist was passing through the farm and saw the eagle strutting in the barnyard. "That's an eagle," he exclaimed to the farmer. "That is the king of birds." The farmer shook his head. "No," he replied, "it is a chicken. It thinks it is a chicken." The naturalist, however, saw the bird's true nature. He gently picked up the eagle, carried it out of the barnyard and up a high mountain. Holding the bird on his arm, he pointed it towards the vast, sunlit sky. "You are not a chicken," he whispered to the bird. "You are an eagle. You belong to the sky, not to the earth. Stretch forth your wings and fly." The eagle trembled. It looked down and saw the familiar, safe barnyard far below. Then it looked up into the endless, blue expanse above. A deep, ancient memory stirred within its heart. A forgotten instinct awakened. Slowly, tentatively, it stretched out its powerful wings. It felt the wind catch beneath them. And then, with a cry that was not a cluck, but a piercing scream of freedom, it launched itself into the air, soaring higher and higher, finally claiming its birthright as the master of the sky. The only cage that had ever held it was a label it had mistaken for the truth. The human mind uses labels as a tool. They are mental shortcuts to categorize and make sense of a complex world. But the ego, the ghost in the house, does something else. It takes these temporary descriptive labels and forges them into a permanent identity. It takes a fleeting experience and turns it into a life sentence. The experience of feeling anxiety becomes the label. I am an anxious person. The event of failing at a task becomes the identity. I am a failure. The thought, I am not worthy of love, becomes the concrete belief. I am unlovable. Once accepted, these labels become the invisible bars of a self-made prison. They filter your perception and dictate your behavior. If you believe the label, I am socially awkward, you will enter a room looking for evidence to confirm it. You will interpret neutral behavior as rejection. You will feel nervous, act awkwardly, and then tell yourself, see, it's true. The label becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are an eagle, convinced you are a chicken, scratching in the dirt while the open sky waits above. What labels have you unknowingly allowed to define the boundaries of your world? I'm not creative. I'm not disciplined. I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. I'm a procrastinator. Each one is a bar in the cage. Each one clips your wings. The practice of liberation is the practice of dissolving these labels. Bring one of your most persistent negative labels into your awareness now. Feel its weight, its texture, its constricting energy. See it for what it is: a collection of sounds, a string of letters. It is not you. It is a story you learn to tell about yourself. You can begin to loosen its grip with a subtle but powerful shift in language. Instead of saying, "I am an anxious person," you can practice thinking, "The energy of anxiety is moving through me right now." The first is a fixed identity, a noun. The second is a temporary process, a verb. It creates space. It honors the truth of impermanence. Instead of "I am a failure," you can say, "I have experienced failure." The first is a judgment on your being. The second is an observation of an event in your history. Ultimately, the goal is to rest in the awareness that is prior to all labels. You are the sky, not the name someone has given to a cloud. You are the eagle, not the opinion of the chickens. By seeing the labels as the mental constructions they are, their power evaporates, the prison bars dissolve, and the vast, open sky of your true potential is revealed. As the prison bars of labels dissolve, you begin to taste the vast, open sky of your own nature. There is a newfound freedom, a sense of limitless possibility. Yet, you may find there is one cell in the prison that remains stubbornly locked. It is the cell of grievance. The bars of this cell are forged from past hurts and betrayals, and they are held together by the powerful label of the one who was wronged. The key to this final door, the one that leads to the most profound freedom, is forgiveness. There is a teaching, echoed in many traditions, that speaks of this truth through a simple, powerful image. Holding onto anger and resentment towards another is like grasping a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at them. No matter how good your aim, you are the one who is being burned, right here, right now. It is also said that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The poison of bitterness, of replayed arguments, of righteous indignation does not harm the person who wronged you. It circulates only within your own system, corroding your peace and poisoning your present moment. Forgiveness is one of the most deeply misunderstood of all spiritual practices. The ego believes forgiveness is an act of weakness. It believes it means condoning the other person's harmful behavior or pretending the pain never happened. It sees forgiveness as a gift given to the perpetrator, a gift they do not deserve. So the ego holds onto the grievance, believing this act of non-forgiveness is a weapon it wields against the other. But all it holds is the burning coal. All it does is drink the poison. Day after day, true forgiveness is not for the other person at all. It is a fierce and courageous act of self-love. It is the ultimate key for your own liberation. It is a declaration made in the quiet of your own heart that you will no longer allow an event from the past to dictate the quality of your present. It is the conscious choice to put down the burning coal, not because the other person deserves it, but because your own hand is blistered and you wish to be healed. It is the refusal to drink another drop of the poison. When you hold on to resentment, You are psychically chained to the person or the event that hurt you. They live rent-free in your mind, and you are forced to relive the moment of pain over and over again. You are giving someone from your past the power to control your emotions in the now. Forgiveness is the act of taking a pair of golden shears and cutting that chain. It does not erase the past, it simply frees you from it. You can remember the lesson the pain taught you, but you no longer have to carry the pain itself. This is a deep and often challenging practice. It requires a willingness to feel the original wound without getting lost in the story about it. It asks you to value your own peace more than you value being right. If there is a grievance, large or small, that you feel ready to release, you can begin the process now. Bring to mind the person and the situation. Allow yourself, for a moment, to acknowledge the pain, the ouch. The part of you that was hurt deserves to be heard and validated by you. Do not rush past this. Honor the reality of your experience. Now, see the energetic chain that has connected you to this person and this memory ever since. Feel its weight. Notice the familiar tension it creates in your body, the bitter taste it leaves in your mind. This is the poison. This is the burning coal. See clearly that the only person it is harming now is you. Then, from the wisest, most compassionate part of your being, you can offer a silent pardon, not for them, but for you. You can say in your heart, I acknowledge the pain that occurred between us. I see what happened, and for the sake of my own peace, for the health of my own soul, I am no longer willing to carry this. I release you from the prison of my anger. I release myself from the role of the victim. I put down this burning coal. I choose to be free. Visualize the chain dissolving into light. Feel the tension in your body begin to soften as you release your grip on the story. This does not mean you must reconcile with the person. It does not mean you have to trust them or let them back into your life. It simply means you are no longer willing to allow them to occupy your sacred inner space. You are cleaning your own house, sweeping out the last vestiges of poison, so that only peace may reside there. This profound act of forgiveness sends ripples of peace not just through your mind, but through your entire being. When you finally put down the burning coal of resentment, you may notice a corresponding release in your body. A knot in your stomach you didn't know was there begins to soften. A tightness in your shoulders that has been your companion for years begins to ease. This is because the body is not simply a machine that carries the brain from place to place. The body is a living scroll, and upon it is written the entire history of your life. In a language more ancient and honest than words, there is a legend of a wise queen who ruled her kingdom with unparalleled insight and compassion. When she needed to choose a new advisor, she would not rely on their words alone. The candidates, the most brilliant and ambitious minds in the land, would be brought before her. They would speak eloquently of their plans, their philosophies, and their loyalty. The queen would listen with her sharp mind, but she would also listen with her body. She had cultivated a deep inner stillness that allowed her to feel the subtle energetic truth behind the words. As one candidate spoke, she might feel a subtle, cold clenching in her solar plexus, a quiet alarm bell of insincerity that her body registered instantly. With another, she might feel her own shoulders relax and a warmth spread through her chest. her body resonating with the candidate's authentic presence. The court believed her choices were based on intellectual brilliance, but the Queen knew her greatest strength was her body's counsel. She understood that the thinking mind can be easily swayed by clever arguments and charisma, but the body cannot be deceived. It is an honest animal, a field of deep intelligence that responds directly to the truth of a moment, long before the conscious mind can form a judgment. For centuries, much of the world has lived like the Queen's clever but unwise candidates, privileging the thinking mind above all else. The body has been treated as a subordinate, a sometimes troublesome vehicle to be disciplined, ignored, or pushed beyond its limits. This has created a profound and painful split in the human experience. We have forgotten how to listen to the body's subtle language. Unfelt grief, unexpressed anger, chronic fear, the weight of old traumas. These things do not simply disappear when we ignore them. They take up residence in the body. They are stored in the tissues, becoming the chronic tightness in the jaw, the persistent ache in the lower back, the hunched shoulders that carry the weight of the world, the shallow breath of anxiety. These are not merely physical symptoms. They are the body speaking its truth. They are emotions made manifest. This wise counselor, this honest animal, lives within you now. It is constantly sending you messages, offering its counsel, but in a life lived from the neck up, a life spent lost in thought and staring at screens, its whispers are easily missed. We often don't listen to the body until it is forced to scream for our attention in the form of illness, injury, or burnout. The practice of returning to wholeness is the practice of returning to the body. It is the art of learning to listen again. You can begin this journey of listening right now. Allow your awareness, which has been soaring in the realms of thought and memory, to gently descend, to come home to the physical vessel of your being. Bring your attention not to judge, analyze, or change anything, but simply to feel, to listen. Start with the foundation, your feet. What sensations are present? Is there warmth, tingling, pressure, numbness? There is no right or wrong answer. There is only sensation, waiting to be noticed. Gently, allow your awareness to travel up through your legs, into your hips and pelvis. This area is often a storehouse for feelings of instability or a lack of support. Can you breathe into this space with kindness? Now, bring your soft attention to your belly and your solar plexus. This is the center of instinct, of gut feelings. Is it soft and relaxed, or tight and guarded? For a moment, just allow it to be as it is, held in your compassionate awareness. Let your attention rise into your chest, the home of the heart. What is the emotional weather here today? Is there an openness, a lightness, or a sense of heaviness, of a shield protecting a tender place? Travel into your shoulders. Notice if they are carrying a burden. With your next exhale, give them permission to soften, to release a weight they may have been carrying for years. Finally, bring your awareness to your neck, your jaw, your temples, and your forehead. This is the command center of control. Can you allow a wave of softness to wash over this entire area, letting go of the need to figure everything out? This is the practice. It is befriending your body. It is learning to trust its wisdom. When you are faced with a choice, you can learn to ask not only, "What do I think about this?" But also, how does my body feel about this? You are reopening a channel to a deep, primal intelligence that will guide you with an honesty the thinking mind can never match. As you come home to your body, you learn to listen to a language more ancient than thought. This deep, internal listening, this befriending of your own physical and emotional landscape, has a profound and transformative effect on how you meet the world. For when the inner noise begins to settle, the constant chatter of the ego, the echoes of past hurts, the static of unhealed trauma, a new capacity emerges. A space opens up within you. And in this space, for the first time, you can truly learn to listen. There is a story of a young musician, a flute player of astonishing technical skill. He could play faster and with more precision than anyone in the province. Seeking to be acknowledged as the best, he traveled to the remote home of the greatest flute master in the land. He played for the master, unleashing a torrent of brilliant, complex music, a dizzying display of his virtuosity. When he finished, breathless, he looked to the old man for the praise he felt he deserved. The master was silent for a very long time. Finally, he looked at the young man with gentle eyes and said, "You have mastered the notes, but you have not yet heard the music." The young musician was crestfallen and confused. "The music," the master explained, "does not live in the notes alone. It lives in the silence that holds the notes. It is the space between them that gives each one its meaning, its poignancy, its power. Your playing is full of notes, but it is empty of silence." He then gave the young man a strange instruction. "Go into the forest for 1 year. Take your flute, but do not play it. Your only task is to listen. Listen to the silence from which the bird song arises. Listen to the silence into which the rustling leaf falls. Listen to the great, still pause between the inhale and the exhale of the world." The young musician did as he was told. At first, the silence was maddening, but slowly, he learned to hear it, to feel it, to rest in it. He began to hear the world in a new way. When he returned a year later, he played for the master again. This time, he played a simple melody with only a handful of notes, but each note was a jewel, held in a vast, loving cradle of silence. Each note landed with deep meaning and resonance. Hearing it, the old master began to weep. "Now," he said, "now you are a musician." What we typically call listening in our day-to-day lives is rarely listening at all. It is most often a form of waiting. While another person is speaking, the mind is busy. It is formulating a rebuttal, preparing a clever response, judging the words, or, most commonly, waiting for a hook to hang its own story on. "Oh, that reminds me of the time when This is not listening. This is the ego filtering reality through its own agenda. It is a mind full of notes, with no space for silence. True, deep listening is a spiritual practice. It is the art of creating a silent space within yourself to receive not just the words of another, but the music behind the words. It is offering another person the profound gift of your own empty cup. It is a state of total presence, where your own stories, judgments, and needs are set aside, and you become a safe, open space for another's truth to land. This kind of listening is one of the most potent forms of healing we can offer one another. To be truly heard, without interruption or judgment, is a rare and sacred experience. It is to feel seen, validated, and loved. This capacity is not a technique to be learned, but a state of being to be cultivated. It grows naturally out of the inner work you have been exploring. By learning to witness your own thoughts without judgment, you are no longer compelled to react to everything. By befriending your inner child, you are no longer triggered into defensiveness. By resting in your body, you become grounded and present. You have learned to listen to your own inner music. You can practice bringing this quality of listening into your life. The next time you are in a conversation, try a quiet experiment. Set an intention to listen not just to the words, but to the silence between them. Resist, just for a moment, the impulse to plan your response. Simply receive. Listen with the counsel of your body. What are you feeling as the other person speaks? What is the emotion, the music that they are trying to express, perhaps even unconsciously? You don't need to fix them or offer a solution. Your silent, attentive, non-judgmental presence is the solution. It is the healing balm. In a world full of noise, offering someone the gift of your silence is a radical act of love. It is how you learn to hear not just the person, but the soul. This deep, silent listening opens up a new way of being in the world. As you learn to listen to your body, to your heart, and to others from a place of stillness, you begin to inhabit the present moment more fully. The frantic, goal-oriented energy of the ego begins to soften, and a quieter, more profound way of navigating life reveals itself. It is the shift from a life of frantic striving to a life of graceful being. It is the realization that the path itself is the destination. A story is told of a group of pilgrims who undertook a great journey to find a legendary sacred mountain. It was said that on its peak, one could find ultimate and lasting peace. The path was long and difficult. Most of the pilgrims were possessed by a kind of destination fever. Their minds were fixed entirely on the summit. They complained about the heat of the day, the sharp rocks under their feet, the monotony of the path. They saw the journey as a mere obstacle to be overcome on the way to their future happiness. In their obsession with the goal, they missed the journey. One pilgrim, however, walked with a different quality of attention. Her goal was not the distant peak, but the single step she was taking right now. She noticed the way the morning light illuminated a spider's web. She felt the texture of the cool earth beneath her feet. She listened to the song of an unseen bird. She found her peace not in the promise of a future reward, but in the living reality of the path itself. The challenges were not obstacles, but teachers of strength and patience. The moments of rest were not delays, but opportunities for gratitude. When the group finally, exhaustedly, reached the summit, the others experienced a brief moment of elation, which quickly faded into a sense of anticlimax. Is this it? They wondered. What do we do now? But the wise pilgrim simply smiled. The view from the peak was beautiful, but her peace was no greater than the peace she had discovered in every single step it took to get there. She had realized the most profound truth of the journey. The sacred mountain was not a place to arrive at. The sacred mountain was the way she chose to walk. This is the great shift from a life directed by the ego to a life guided by awareness. The ego lives entirely on the horizontal plane of time. It is a creature of the past and the future. Its entire operating system is based on becoming. It is always trying to get somewhere, to become happier, to become more secure, to become enlightened. The present moment is forever seen as deficient, a mere stepping stone to a better moment that is always just around the corner. This creates a baseline of constant, subtle dissatisfaction. The feeling that peace is always deferred. A life guided by awareness unfolds on the vertical axis of the present moment. It is a life of being. Awareness can only exist now. When presence becomes your guide, the quality of your attention to the unfolding moment becomes the most important thing. The journey itself becomes sacred. Peace is no longer a destination to be reached after much struggle. It is a quality of presence that can be inhabited right now, in the midst of your ordinary life. This way of walking is available to you, not on some distant mountain path, but right here. You live in a culture that promotes destination addiction. The promise is always, when I get the promotion, when I find the right partner, when I retire, then I will be happy, then I will have peace. This is the great lie that keeps you running on a treadmill, your gaze forever fixed on a horizon that recedes as you approach it. The practice is to gently withdraw your attention from the horizon and bring it to the ground beneath your feet. It is to find the sacred in the mundane. As you drink your morning tea, the practice is not to be thinking about the day ahead, but to simply drink the tea, feel the warmth of the cup in your hands, smell the aroma, taste the liquid. Let that be your entire world, just for a few breaths. As you walk to your car, feel the sensation of your feet making contact with the ground. This simple, embodied awareness is meditation in motion. It is arriving where you already are. This does not mean you cannot have goals or dreams. You can still plan for the future, but you hold it lightly. Your fulfillment is no longer contingent on the outcome. It is found in the integrity and presence you bring to each step of the process. Your life is no longer a dress rehearsal for a future performance. This moment, right now, is the main event. Your peace is not waiting for you at the top of the mountain. It is here, in the quality of this breath, in the feeling of this singular, precious, and unrepeatable step. And so you walk this pathless path, where every step is an arrival. Your life, with its joys and sorrows, its challenges and its ease, becomes the sacred ground of your practice. The destination is no longer a future promise. It is found in the depth of your presence now. You have journeyed far inward. You have learned to see the thoughts as clouds in the vast sky of your mind. You have met the ghost of the ego and smiled at its fears. You have seen the other boats on the river as empty, releasing the burden of blame. You have walked with a lantern into the shadow garden, and you have learned to float on the great river of impermanence. You have held your inner child with a kindness it always deserved. You have set down the heavy burdens of the past. You have traced your cracks with gold, and you have tasted the sweet freedom of the empty cup. And now, the journey takes its final turn. It is the turn toward home. All these teachings, these stories, these practices, they have been fingers pointing to the moon. They are rafts that have carried you across a great water. But now, you stand on the other shore. You do not need the raft any longer. It is time to let it go. Let go of the effort to be mindful. Let go of the identity of the spiritual seeker. Let go of the one who is healing. Let go of the observer. Let go of all the concepts, all the beautiful ideas. Let them dissolve like salt in water. Imagine yourself as a single drop of rain. You fell from the great sky of being. You have journeyed through clouds, flowed in rivers, nourished the earth. You have had a unique and beautiful journey. And now, you have arrived at the shore of a great, silent, and peaceful ocean. This ocean is your source. It is your true home. It is pure, boundless consciousness. Feel yourself now at the very edge, and with a final, gentle release, let yourself merge. Let the drop return to the ocean. There is no longer a you that is separate. The sense of a small self, the storyteller, the ghost in the house, dissolves into this vastness. All that is left is the gentle, rhythmic breathing of the ocean of being, a soft, easy rising, and a long, peaceful falling. There is nothing to do. There is nowhere to go. There is nothing to become. Everything you are searching for is here, in this simple, silent, and complete presence. All the tension in your body can now melt away, dissolving into this infinite peace. All the lingering thoughts can fade into the background, like distant stars in the morning light. There is only this stillness, this deep, profound rest. This is the peace that passes all understanding. It has been here all along, waiting beneath the noise, waiting for you. Your peace was never gone. It was only waiting for you to be quiet.